Hello, everybody, worldwide, wherever you're following us, whatever is your time zone. Here we are with a new episode of the Leo Zagami Show. We have John Barnwell, who, of course, is an old acquaintance of ours. And we should have, at some point or another, also joining us, somebody who participated to this incredible film that we're witnessing right now. At least some of the images, some of the most interesting ones regarding part of this ritual which is enacted. Hello, John. Good morning. How is everything in Detroit?
Everything's good. We're all closed down here and ready to go.
So I guess that you're following the Michigan directives of being...
Well, if you want to participate in culture, you have to do it looking like a bandit.
Well, regarding the possibility of using mask, I guess that mask is also a very ritualistic and magical object, and that's why we have mask featured in Eyes Wide Shut. So I wanted to actually start today's episode of the Leo Zagami Show with this incredible opportunity that we have also today to of course have as a guest this important actress Julienne Davis, who has participated in a role which was also a very specific and particular role in this film. I mean, she is the character that basically saves Tom Cruise and sacrifices her own life. After, of course, the beginning of the film, we see that Tom Cruise saves her life out of a some drug abuse, a speedball, that's how it's described. And this whole thing, of course, is the film of Stanley Kubrick, which is based on a novel called Dream Story, in which this whole ritual scene was actually out of the imagination of the protagonist. So instead, in Kubrick's version, it becomes reality. It becomes a reality that we have often talked about because it regards secret societies. And so I wanted to, of course, talk with you also, John, about the obsession for the use of mask under a magical and ritualistic point of view. And that's why I've immediately picked up on a I would say a booklet more than a book, called because it is actually a publication, an official publication made by the traditionalist Martinist order, which talks about the use of mask, because the use of mask is not for every secret society. Not every secret society uses masks, but the Martinists in particular have always used masks. And who are the Martinists? Well, they are some kind of, how you will describe the Martinists, John, to our viewers?
Well, it's complex, but basically...
And we welcome, of course, Julienne.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. So welcome, Julienne. Let's...
I'm so sorry. What technical difficulties?
No worries, no worries. We were already here discussing the symbolism of the mask. Of course, the symbol of the mask is fundamental, especially in your role in Eyes Wide Shut. What's happening?
It says the video has been removed.
The video is being removed. There seems to be some difficulty in the broadcast, but we are still broadcasting. I mean, to my knowledge, we are still broadcasting.
There's no chat.
So we are broadcasting at the moment only on Facebook.
But I'm not showing up. Am I not showing up?
No, you are showing up. No, it's not your problem, Julian. It's a problem that we are actually, we have probably got already banned. And, but we're not banned everywhere. We are banned at the moment, I think, on YouTube. And we are still broadcasting, for those who are interested, of course, on Facebook. That happens, of course, Julienne, as you know, conservatives are under attack. Censorship is always on the move. We have just had a problem a couple of days ago with PayPal removing all their associations with us and demanding us to remove all their association with them. So it took me days here to remove all the links of PayPal from my sites, and it's still going to probably take me another couple of days. But that's what happens, as you know, with conservatives, because Julienne is also a conservative actress, let's say, something different from the rest of Hollywood. But before we go into all that, we will record this show. So anyway, we will be able to upload it in other channels in the days and weeks to come. So no worries for the immediate censorship, because we have always a backup. What do you think about the censorship, John, that is possible on this video?
Well, I think that, yeah, you've got it, and there's many platforms that it can be downloaded to, so let's not worry about all that. It's great to see. Should I call you Mindy?
Well,
Mandy.
Mandy, yeah, that's right. Mandy.
No, that's fine. You can call me Julienne. Yeah, Mandy's dead.
Mandy's dead, and what happens in this movie?
Mandy's dead, and they killed her. So yeah, that's my theory anyway. Although they didn't spell that out. I was chatting with Todd Field, who played Nick Nightingale, and we both were under the impression that they forced me to OD and kill me. So they actually gave me the drugs that killed me, and he never got home to his wife and 4 kids. So that was our take on it. Yeah.
Well, it was very interesting also that Stanley Kubrick always left some mystery around the central protagonist of that ritual, the man with an English accent, who after is said to have been actually Kubrick's assistant, or not? The one who plays the Red Cloak.
Right. Leon Vitali.
Yeah, Leon Vitali. So he was always an assistant of Kubrick all his life, and he participates in this role. But apparently there is a link between the role that is played by Vitali, so the Red Cloak, and you in some way as Mandy. And this link is kind of like softly spoken in a way through the lines of this article, which is then found by Tom Cruise and then showed to the guy who basically is the guy who has this kind of affair at the beginning, with you. And you have this drug overdose, and then at that point you get saved by Tom Cruise, and you are basically returning a favor in a way when you save him from.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
That's it. Okay, we are, and like I was saying a moment ago.
Yeah, that's what I believe to be true. That because he saved me, I wanted to save him, because he was unknowingly going into this world that really he shouldn't be, because I guess my character Mandy, this is how I see it, this is my own interpretation, but I just see it that my character Mandy appreciated the fact that he cared about me at all, that I wasn't just this sexual plaything for the world's wealthy. And so in returning that favor, because I felt that he saved my life, I wanted to save his. So that's why I warned him. And that's why, I guess the reason why my character was willing to sacrifice herself is because I guess she felt that she was so far in it that she couldn't get out, which is very interesting if you think about it, with people that are involved in these sort of elite groups, whether it's the worldwide pedophilia network or the, just sex trafficking network, the drug network, there's so many aspects of the world that are interconnected with, entertainment, drugs, sex trafficking, pedophilia, banking. There's all of these different areas are kind of interconnected. And when you get into some of these groups, like, we talk about the Illuminati, or specific groups, like, say, the people that go to Bohemian Grove, for instance, and the ritual that they call the cremation of care. So all the people that are involved in these things, other people know that they're involved.
But
and so it's like they have information. They have information on you. Like, I know what you do. You know what I do. So we have this pact that we can really never get out. How do we get out?
Well, it's a little bit like in the Skull and Bones, when they make you give all your confessions of your secrets, of course, and this is done in front of all the other members. It's a technique, of course, but the particularity about this film is the use of the mask. Now, I was talking right at the beginning of the show, even before you came on, about the fact that masks are rarely used within the esoteric, the Western initiatic system, but they were in use in France by a specific group that then became known worldwide and developed also here in the US, known as the Martinists. However, the masks are used for a variety of magical and religious purposes, because the moment in which you wear a mask, you are basically giving up on your own identity. You are assuming another identity, another force. Now, the ritualistic practice has two complementary goals. One is immortalize and idolizing the face of the departed, that at times you have, of course, this link with the dead. The other is the vital force, and in this case, the vital force that escapes from the body is of a sexual nature. That's why we have always connected Eyes Wide Shut with sex magic. Of course, your involvement was at a very early age in your life. You were living in England, from what I gather. I myself was living in London right at that time, but the difference was... Well, really? Yeah, of course, I was living in London until 2003. I'm half British, so I was living in London, and I was actually running some lodges and occult groups right in that period of time. So while you were actually portraying it in fiction, I was doing it for real.
I have to hear, which lodges and groups, because I know that right after or right around the time of Eyes Wide Shut, either before, during filming, or slightly after, there were a few kind of groups that I was hearing about. Like there were these parties, and I can't think of the name of them for the life of me, but there were these parties that were basically, for the elite. You had to put your name forward. And they were basically like sex orgy parties.
Well, that's always that's always been going on. You see, my grandmother, who was also teaching acting and so on, you might then want to have a look at her. She worked with Fellini, Zeffirelli, but she was with nonchalance once announcing, I remember, if on Breakfast TV in England or another show, her involvement with this kind of parties where they all went around naked with very rich and powerful people. And she described it to me at a very young age. I remember I used to go around with my grandmother all over Europe visiting her friends. At one point, she talked to me about these kind of parties, especially in the south of France. And these kind of parties, of course, but saw the involvement of very, very powerful people. But she said, well, we were doing the normal things, but we were all naked. That was the only difference. And that was somehow how she described it, though she was also the one who gave me my first Aleister Crowley book when I was very young, so I don't know if that was all true. So I guess that John Barnwell has something to say about that. John, it's a pleasure, of course, to have you back on the show, and we have Julienne, who can give us a great opportunity here of discussion. And I'm very sorry that we have immediately been censored, and we're going to have to re-upload this whole show in the days and weeks to come. But what is your take about what Julian said? Of course, there were groups. I, for example, was running the Fraternitas Rosicruciana Antigua in London and in England at the time, which is connected to Arnold Krumheller, who was also connected at one point with Aleister Crowley. And then I was also in the Tabula Rasa Lodge of the OTO. I was involved with the people also and workings in various Masonic lodges, also the SRIA, the Golden Dawn, and all these workings. But of course, when it comes down to certain secret societies, they are really rarely spoken. You can't really even hear about them. Sexual magic, for example, is often connected to a secret society known as the Therapeutic Brotherhood of Miriam, or Oriente Osirideo Egizio, which was founded in Naples by a group of high-level aristocrats, and then it developed especially in the south of France. So that's why I was talking about south of France. In 1999, we have the release, of course, of Eyes Wide Shut, but also of The Ninth Gate, very interesting movie by Roman Polanski with some similarities. John, you want to say something about what we are discussing today, so we can open up the dances, as we say?
Yeah, well, this is not a new thing. I mean, you have the Hellfire Club in England that would have these subterranean orgies with members of the aristocracy. So that's an old tradition in England and things like that.
Which also saw the participation of Benjamin Franklin, by the way, just so.
Yeah, yes. But that being said, years ago, I was down in Florida and I was taken by some friends of the family to Mar-a-Lago and went there and had a nice meal, looked around. It was just absolutely spectacular. Later in the week, though, the same couple took us to this place, the Boca Grove Country Club, which is equally as exclusive, but not known at all, hardly. And he told me a story about he was in an elevator with a baron, right? And the baron invited him to a party at a chateau in southern France. And he went, when he got back home, told his wife about it. And of course, she insisted that he take her along with him. And he went to this party. And as they walk in, there's beautiful, like supermodel type women walking around in designer gowns that are bare-breasted with pierced nipples with like diamond jewelry hanging from their nipples. And it was like kind of entry level to that whole scene. And he was quite surprised at the absolute opulence, And of course, it was Baron von Thyssen from the Thyssen-Krupp family. Now, I only had one encounter with him personally. I was at a garden party in Grosse Pointe, and he happened to be there, but we didn't get to chat it up. I mean, again, I'm not the kind of person that taps people on the shoulder too much, but I run into a great many people. And more often than not, they tap me on the shoulder. But that being said, he passed away some few years ago. But that this is going on, I mean, you can go back to the parties that were going on even around Playboy Mansion and all that, which now people are coming out and saying that was a CIA secret black file opportunity, and they would invite people to parties there, and they get pictures, and these
I've been to one of those parties at the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah,
I don't see him as all that, but
but you didn't go to that party, see?
No, that's true.
And
I just
and all these things have
yeah. I went to a party once, and that was it. But let me, it's very interesting because, the circles that you are both talking about are the circles that I used to run in London after Eyes Wide Shut came out. When when Eyes Wide Shut came out, I was like the new ingenue on the scene. And so all the PR companies were inviting me to all the parties and the opening and the jewelry openings. And then, I went to Monaco and We did this big opening with Steinmetz Diamonds, and I met and partied with Prince Albert. And, you know, so, I mean, the circles I ran in were those circles.
That's why you're here.
But what's very interesting about that is that, you know, this is just me having a sense of things, okay? The person that I am is the person that you see. I'm really an open book. I don't really have a personality that's full of pretense. I just am what I am. That's just how I am. I'm very open, I'm honest, and this is me. And the interesting thing is that I think...
And that's great, Julienne, that you are honest and open. Just a brief, I want to interrupt you just for a second. We have managed to move to another YouTube channel while you were talking. So we will now spread the link of this other YouTube channel.
Oh, perfect.
And please continue. I'm just doing some technical stuff too.
So what I find really fascinating is that I felt like, you know, when I first started kind of on this scene, this kind of, you know, the international jet set scene that is, and let me describe all the different peoples that are involved in this scene. You have actors and actresses, you have, you know, like more famous actors and actresses, or, you know, people that are infamous, like Katie Price, you know, people like that were also on the scene. You have bankers, like investment bankers. You have commodities brokers, people that are involved in the buying and selling of gold and iron, et cetera, et cetera. You probably have mafia people, although they're not out and out in saying that they're mafia, but they're there because they have a lot of money and they're part of the elite. You have people that are involved in politics. You know, you have heads of, you know, the Conservative Party, you know, top MPs, you've got top fashion designers, musical stars. Do you get my point? It's like the top of all these different businesses, and they all kind of come together. So entertainment, banking, all of it.
I know exactly what you mean. It reminds me a little bit of what was happening in Monte Carlo, for example.
Yes. Exactly. So, you know, I mean, Monte Carlo, that was a trip and a half being down there and seeing the parties.
And I was actually one of the people in charge of the lodge down in Monte Carlo. So just.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was there, I think it was 2003. I was there for a launch of Steinmetz Diamonds in conjunction with a PR company called RMG PR, Roz Mulaney Galani, I believe is her name. Anyway, she's lovely and she's a friend and she's genuine. And, you know, anyway, she invited me to this thing for Steinmetz. And it was, you know, like a 3-day whirlwind of all these different parties. And I really got a glimpse of what life is like in Monaco, especially during the Grand Prix. And, you know, the most gorgeous women. I mean, I felt like a plain Jane next to all these women that were just flocking into Monaco, hanging out at the Hotel de Paris. And, you know, it's just unbelievable. I mean, really, you're talking about the top of the top. And what was interesting is that some of the parties that I went to and some of the people that I met, and not just in Monaco, but, you know, all the parties in London and, you know, Paris and wherever, is that I felt like there were some people that were just sort of, you know, they were meeting me and they were sizing me up. They were sizing me up as if to say, are you one of us or are you not? You know, I really felt that. And there were certain people who I would shake their hand and I would just feel this real sense of, ugh, you know, I mean, I had always promised myself from an early age that even though I was in entertainment, I never wanted to go to the dark side. You know, I mean, I wasn't going to sell my soul or go to the dark side in order to become more famous or become more successful. I couldn't live with myself, you know. Likewise, the whole thing of the casting couch. I just didn't believe in it. I didn't think it was. It's like cheating at Monopoly, you know. It just didn't seem right to me. And so I think that a lot of those people that are probably involved in these sorts of parties and this sort of debauchery, that like to be at the top of things, in control of things. I think they sized me up, and I think that they said, she's not one of us, and I don't think they bother, you know? And I was very lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually probably what has happened. They always try to understand who they have in front of them. Look at what Jeffrey Epstein did all his life, picking up on very young women who were, of course, defenseless, often because of their social background, of their upbringing. So it's all about preying on the weak. That is what Catholic priests do when they prey on little children. I mean, they immediately understood. They tried with me, and as soon as they put their hand down, like in disgust, they knew exactly that they couldn't try any further. But because they knew who my father was, my grandfather was, and they knew that they would have a gun at their head. So that is the difference with the poor guy. Instead, some of them, even I remember, and I saw being treated, and then of course with the results in their later life. I remember 10 years ago meeting one of these kids who was given even a job in the Vatican after being raped all his life, and of course he was a wreck of a man, almost suicidal, and it was really sad to see what they have done to him. And the same happens for women, of course, women who are often prey of these people. But then there is women who are willing. They're willing participants who like they like the power, they like the game, they like even the esoteric part
Absolutely.
of it. So I mean,
Yeah, I agree with you on that. In fact, you know, with the whole thing with Harvey Weinstein as well, you have all this outrage. And people saying, oh, you know, we need to stop this sort of thing. And I keep saying to people, look, hang on, you know, there's a lot of people that are quite happy to play that game. A lot of people, you know, it's really a matter of what is going on in the moral souls of a lot of different individuals, that you are willing to do whatever you do in order to get where you want to go. And how important is that to you? You know? And it's very interesting you mentioned Jeffrey Epstein, because when all of that started coming out, and then they mentioned that he had a place in Paris, my memory...
He had also a very important French assistant who found all the models for him, and who is still, I think, on the loose.
Right. Well, I have a story about that, because I was in Paris. I spent a lot of time in Paris, because before I was an actor, I was a fashion model, right? So I spent time in Paris and Milan and Athens and Tokyo and, you know, various places. But anyway, so I'm in Paris. It was I can't remember if it was 92, 94, somewhere around that time. And I was with this one agency. It was an agency called, I think I was with Metropolitan at the time. And my booker said, hey, you know, do you want to go out tonight? We'll go to the Bandouche, which I'm sure you know about.
I know very well. I think I even played records at the Bandouche once as a DJ.
Yeah. Well, so for John, the Bandouche is a club in Paris, and it's basically, you know, one of the most sort of elite clubs. You know, all the top entertainment people go there. Top models, fashion designers. You know, I saw Oliver Stone there. You know, I saw various top models there, etc. And it's just like the place where all the models go, especially during pret-a-porter. You know, huge at that time. Anyway, but I believe I was there in the summertime, and so my booker called and he said, "Hey, do you want to go to the Bandouche?" I said, "Yeah, why not? You know, let's go." So. He picks me up and he goes, hey, and I lived in the 11th arrondissement at the time. Anyway, so he picks me up and he drives me, you know, we're heading towards the Bandouche, and he goes, hey, you know, we've got some other models staying with an American businessman friend of mine. Do you mind if we just stop by there and see if they want to join us? And I said, yeah, why not, you know? So I remembered where the place was. I remembered it was, you know, quite a posh area. I remembered it was just a little bit north of the Arc de Triomphe. And we parked in front, and there was a huge hedge and a gate. And then inside the gate, there was a grassy area. And then the building was set back. Now, I say that because in Paris, that doesn't happen all the time, to have that. You know, a lot of times you just have the building on the street. But this one had a really long hedge with a gate with about a 20-foot gap with grass. And then the building was there set back. So we parked up, you know.
And a very beautiful building also.
Yeah. Yes, it was. A lovely building, high ceilings, you know, all the sort of, you know, the molding, and, you know, it was beautiful. So we go into this apartment. I believe it was on the first floor. And the apartment was decorated. Yeah, it was kind of sparsely decorated. Like, it didn't look like the kind of place that somebody spent all year. You know, it looked like the place where you had perfunctory pieces that were necessary to have, you know, couch, couple chairs, you know, a table, you know what I mean? But it wasn't fully decorated or kitted out. And then the models that were staying there were in, you know, one of the bedrooms, 2 mattresses on the floor, all their crap everywhere, which is pretty typical for how models live. And so we're sitting there in the living room, and this American businessman comes out. Now, I don't remember names. I'm really bad at names. I always have been. But what I do remember, because I'm an extremely visual person, is I remember meeting a man who was in his, I would say, early 40s. And he had a face that he had this really strong jaw. I just remember that. I thought, he's kind of attractive, but he's got this oversized jaw that makes him not quite attractive. And I remember, you know, meeting him, having a sense of how low key he was, really low key. I mean, just so casual, as if to just be like, yeah, hey, how are you? You know, that kind of low key. His handshake was very, very soft, like very soft. I mean, not wet fish soft, but just very, like, almost sensual soft. It was weird. So we sat there chatting for about 10 minutes about something inane. And then the girls decided they weren't going to go. I wonder if my booker was involved with this man, who I believe is Jeffrey, who was Jeffrey. And Jeffrey sized me up, and I was older at the time, but I guess I looked younger, and he was thinking, oh, what about her? You know, I don't know. I'm just conjecturing here. And then we left. But it was very interesting because my memory of the apartment, where it was on the map, according to where it is in Arc de Triomphe, you know, in respect to the Arc de Triomphe. So I looked it up. I looked up the location of Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in Paris. And sure enough, it was exactly where I remembered it was. And it just, all the pieces fit together in my mind. And I thought, of course he would be there in the summertime. And for anybody that knows about the fashion industry, models come to mainly, you know, number one place that you want to go to build your book, to get tear sheets, which is, tear sheets means fashion pages ripped out of magazines, like torn out of magazines. That's why they call them tear sheets. So the number one place that models go to build their books and to, you know, really rise up in the world of fashion.
Well, I know a little bit about it because my wife used to be with Elite, so I know very well what you're talking about.
Right. Okay. So you know, they're in Paris and Milan, and where are the youngest in the summertime is in Paris and Milan to do that, right? And the reason why Jeffrey was probably in Paris or in Milan every summer is because he knew that that's where the youngest girls were, because, you know, they were there during their school break, right? If he was there any other time, he would have known it would have been everybody that was over 18. But in the summertime, you had girls that were 15 and 16, right? And that's
he was right there praying and hunting like almost a hunter.
Absolutely. And the thing is a lot of parents think that their child is okay, that their child is safe when they send them off to Paris and Milan, because the mother agency says, oh, you know, don't worry, you know, they will be fully chaperoned.
Now, from my own experience, I mean, my wife fortunately was working for Elite in Japan, which is a place where there is some respect. But I've met models when I used to live in Norway. Of course, Norway is full of beautiful ladies that go modeling to Milan and came back in the most awful conditions, dragged up, screwed up in their head psychologically. Yep. And so it was really sad to see that you live from Norway is a very naive country, very easygoing, and then they came back, of course, with this kind of dreadful experiences.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it with American girls. I've seen it happen to many people. The stuff that goes on in Paris, the stuff that goes on in Milan. The fact
when it comes down to, of course, we are talking about a contest which you have represented in fiction. But when it comes to reality, I would say that similar scenes, of course, have been portrayed by the elite in south of France, in England, but also Silvio Berlusconi with his Lodge of the Dragon. Silvio Berlusconi, obsessed with women, also got involved in some ritualistic practices. And I remember also the involvement of this aristocrat who became a TV presenter for Rai, and she from a very important family, the Saint-Just family. And unfortunately, she got involved with these people, and the result was that she ended up being locked up in a loony bin when she was not compliant anymore to their request. Wow. And it was really sad to see her. I remember me and my wife actually went to a pizzeria which is close to this mental asylum for rich kids and for aristocrats. So they have a specific mental asylum which is used in Rome, which is all guarded by cameras and stuff. And we were there having a slice of pizza at lunchtime, and they let them out at times for lunch. And suddenly I saw her sitting down there, and I recognized her, and she, of course, recognized me because I knew her. And I was like shocked. First of all, how she looked, completely different from just a few years before. And then I said to my wife, look at this woman, because after I'm going to tell you something about her. And when we went out, and it was her, because after I contacted her through Facebook and she confirmed me that it was her. But the thing is that the way that she was manipulated, she was actually brought all the way to Roslin Chapel in Scotland, which is a famous place, as you know, connected to the Templars, to the Sinclair family. And she was made to have sex magic with Berlusconi inside the Roslin Chapel, which is, of course...
I mean, it's a world that I have not delved in that world. I mean, the only experience I had of that world was actually shooting Eyes Wide Shut. I kid you not. I mean, I went to parties, but not those kind of parties. And as I said,
did the fact that you acted in a movie like that change your life or targeted you in some way by the elite?
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did. Like, that's why I say, my life absolutely changed after that film. It absolutely changed. I mean, I was, before that time, I was just a working fashion model. I wasn't a star. I was just a working model. And Stanley choosing me for that role catapulted me into a different level. And then once all the PRs started inviting me to various parties, then it upped my level again. And so, yeah, it was massively life-changing. It really, really was. But as I say, I believe that they sized me up, and whoever was involved in the dark side knew that I wasn't one of them and that I didn't want to be one of them. And I pretty much, I think, in things that I say and the person that I am, I think that was pretty clear.
Now, Julienne, you have been talking before this show with my co-host here, John Barnwell, and of course you must have gone into in depth with all kinds of things. John, Is there a specific question that you would like to ask to Julienne about her experience, and of course also your take on this secretive world that is often linked with the sexual magic?
Well, I mean, if you remember, there just a few years ago, a video surfaced of a Dutch banker who came out about his experiences in investment banking, and that he would get invited to these parties, and like you said, hey, what young guy doesn't like to go to parties with beautiful naked women, you know? And eventually he started moving up the ladder in the company he was with, the banking company, although he didn't say which bank, but one of the major European banks. And he would go to these parties, and then eventually he was brought to the point to where he was told that in order to move up in the company, he had to participate in a ritual sacrifice of a child. And he just like, you know, hey, wait a minute, I didn't sign on for this, you know? And so there's always been this kind of like undertow, like Labas, you know, it's that dark shadow, archonic. It's a reality, and see, the secret to the mystery is that were you to pursue higher consciousness, you have to consider that your personal self-reference begins at about age 3, right? You don't remember generally what happened before your age 3, and that there's much higher realities participating in your being on a more intimate level before you come to self-consciousness. And were one to develop one's consciousness, you would re-enter that realm. Well, the forces of darkness, there's nothing that they like better than exploiting that realm. And that's the darkest form of magic there is the degradation of childhood. And so this is very serious stuff. Now, as far as how deeply it reaches into people that are participating, again, it's what level they're at. And even Rudolf Steiner had said that it's difficult to tell the people that are participating in the works of the fallen archive. And so consequently, it's out there and it goes back, and there's a whole, I don't know anybody of my friends that knows as much about it as Leo does. And it's, you know, I'm aware of it myself, running the largest occult bookstore in the world for many years. And it's not my path, but when you start to get red-pilled in the very real sense of seeing what is actually going on, seeing how dark some of these spirits are. I mean, really, the simple task in America, as I see it, is getting past Roe v. Wade. As long as we're doing mass abortions, we're feeding that whole realm of dark spirits, and it's just tragic, you know, that they want to extend it beyond, you know, late-term abortions, and you know, let the baby be born, but because it was supposed to be an abortion, that just let the baby die naturally. I mean, can't people see what this is? I mean, at this point, America is really, they have a wake-up call with this whole lockdown that's going on. It's saying, hey, wait a minute, I didn't sign on for some kind of authoritarian system. And when you get behind the authoritarian system, in the backdrop, you're going to find that kind of activity, and it ties into these various groups that are multinational. And
it's also the imposition of the use of masks.
Yeah.
Now everybody has to use masks. I mean,
yeah. Well, and that's just it. And I think that's
literal and figurative.
Well, you know, that's kind of an Egyptian trait, you know, because they had the Egyptian rites where they would wear masks, for example. And so consequently, there is that shadow Sethian stream, you know, Kenneth Grant and all those characters that you used to hang out with, Leo.
Yeah, in fact, Kenneth Grant is very popular with this kind of parties.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine telling me that maybe 3 or 4 years ago, he got to pick up Paris Hilton in Monte Carlo to go and celebrate, I think, Kenneth Anger's birthday. Kenneth Anger in this case, because also you have Kenneth Grant, but then you have Kenneth Anger. Kenneth Anger is definitely the one who was always and is still alive, and he's always been more obsessed with this kind of occult practices regarding sexual magic.
Yes, yeah. Kenneth Anger, he's kind of like the film version of Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, well, but he's also somebody who has really brought on camera the rituals, the real rituals, and has inspired a lot of people, including probably even Kubrick, because Kenneth Anger is an underground filmmaker that has inspired a lot of people in Hollywood. They don't like to admit it, but James DeFranco admits it. He actually did his thesis.
Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Johnny Depp, absolutely. And then we go back to discussing the fact that in 1999 there was these two films, Eyes Wide Shut, but we also had The Ninth Gate. The Ninth Gate was different and it was also perceived differently, but these were two great filmmakers, Roman Polanski and Stanley Kubrick. And Roman Polanski also has this scene in this, of course, a scene is more satanic, is openly more satanic. But let's not forget that the music that was used in that ritual scene in Eyes Wide Shut was originally voices from Orthodox priests, then picked up by the author and reversed. So this reversing is typical of Satanism. Is actually Satan. Quintessence of Satanism is to reverse Christian prayers. Did you have that sense, Julian, when you were involved in the film, that there was something malignant or satanic?
Of course. I mean, while we were filming it. But what was interesting is that, you know, Stanley did not share the script with me. I'm sure, obviously, you know, Tom and some of the bigger actors and the crew had the full script, but I was not allowed to see the full script. So all I could do at the time was kind of look around and think, whoa, this is pretty intense, with the rituals and the you know, there was you had the girls in the circle and then the guy in the center with the incense going around and the masked, the blindfolded keyboard player, all of that. Yeah, of course. I mean, of course we thought it sounded satanic. Of course we did.
So the perception of